Livestream. I'm here with Richard Paolinelli of Tuscany Bay Books
Hello,
and
hello.
the
Welcome to another
oh
Sunday
my goodness,
Superversive live
every
stream.
time. I'm here
All
with
right.
Richard Paul. There we go. Uh, and the editor for the Pluto Planetary Anthology out this Thursday, December 5th, through Amazon. And other things I know, I'm looking forward to the expansion of the planetary saga. How are you doing today, Richard?
I'm doing great. We're trying to stay warm and in nice, windy and frigid Nebraska, but otherwise doing good.
Yeah. I mean it's pretty cold up and down the Midwest. I'm enjoying near freezing temperatures in my room. Old houses are pretty great except for the sieves. Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, tell us about Pluto. It's been a long time coming and we're finally pushing it forward. What do you have to say about it?
Well, you mentioned it was a long time coming. It seems like it took forever to get to this point, but fortunately, everybody kind of hung in there, and we've finally managed to get it to where it's people are going to be able to read it Thursday. And I'm actually looking forward to um, to getting some of the feedback from people who've read it because we've got 21, I should say 21 really great stories from a pretty wide range of authors. And it runs the gamut of tragedies to comedy to silly adventures to just about anything you could think of in sci-fi and fantasy you're going to find in this book. And just starting with the first story from B. Michael Stevens, he really sets the tone for the rest of the book with his short story. And you know, I'm just glad we finally got it done. I just remember the early days when we were going through the initial submissions and trying to decide which ones would get in, and had to beg, borrow, and steal for a little bit of extra room so we could get about two or three more stories in because it was hard to cut them. Some of the ones that we did cut, I wish we could have kept because they were that good. But I think everybody's going to enjoy reading it, and I know I enjoyed getting it put together. And Don Whiskey, a lot of credit goes to her for helping sort through all this. And I think we've come up with a really good addition to the planetary series.
Absolutely. Ben Michael Stevens seems to be moving from strength to strength in his writing. I know he just released Bardo of the Unquiet Mind and is
Mhm.
working on the next Goddess Gambit sequel. And Don Witzke has been around for a bit, and you and I have rubbed shoulders on occasion. It's really been one of those great things, and I'm amused. You said you had 21 stories.
One
Some
stories.
some scientists claim that 21 is the average age. That people tend to start dying more than they are regrowing their cells. I'm amused by this.
It ties in with the death aspect of this particular edition. There were stories of great wealth and death. Was the overall theme that we started with for people to work with when they submitted their story. So yeah, that's kind of ironic that we settled on 21 for the number of stories.
Yep, and I'm enjoying it quite a bit. I like the cover. Admittedly, I do like the old covers, but I understand that you're giving them all brand spanking new covers for the anthologies.
We
Um,
are. We decided we wanted to have something more where we had the planet or the astronomical body that was the subject of the edition interacting with the god that it was named after. And so we've kind of gone in a different way. And the I think the astronaut theme that they had
mhm.
originally for the original five, those are good covers. But it's a new publisher now, and we wanted to kind of go in a different direction with the covers, and I think everybody's going to like them as they see them as each one comes out. I think they're going to enjoy what we've come up with.
You certainly do hit the theme, and honestly, that's the most important part with anthology covers. catches the eye. It's got the nice scythe and Pluto look. It's everything anyone could ask for in this case, anyway. So,
It's funny when we first started out, what, 2, 3 years ago to do this. I had found this image that I thought would have been perfect for the Pluto cover. And I think it was before anything was decided on what the covers were going to look like. And unfortunately, as it turns out, as I was researching the cover, I discovered it was a stolen image that
really?
the artist had. Yeah, she had stolen it from somebody several years ago, and they altered it so she could try to claim it was original. It's like, well, no, we're not going to use stolen material for for these things, so we're going to do it right. And unfortunately, I came across the elements for this one for Pluto, and we've come across with some stuff that's out there that, like I said, it fits the theme of the series, and I think everybody's going to really enjoy looking at them because they really do catch the eye.
Oh yeah. And it's something I'll repeat on this live stream, time and time again. Covers matter. Invest in your covers. People judge books by their covers, unless you're
Mhm.
like Stephen King or something like that. Well, people will just buy the scraps of paper you've scribbled notes on and like greasy napkins. Uh, you know, the real horror was what he ate. But uh actually that'd be hilarious. You have these people obsessing over an author and like they get these greasy napkins and they're following his greasy napkin trail in dumpsters and then he's like at a cannibal feast and the fat on
Uh-huh.
him is human fat. There you go, Stephen King. It'll take him a week, but I'm sure he's already halfway through.
And
Uh
he could, and like you said with King, he could probably, put out a greasy napkin on the cover, and that would be good enough because it has Stephen King's name on it. So,
exactly.
yep.
Yep. Anyway, so let's talk more about the content, which is where anthologies are always made or broken. Uh, what's your favorite story?
See, I knew you were going to do that to me. You were going to come up with which one's my favorite.
Yes, which one does
Yeah,
Daddy
yeah,
love more?
yeah. Can I plead the fifth here? Yeah, I can't really pick one, and honestly, I can't pick one because, if I didn't like them, they wouldn't have been in there in the first place, obviously. But
hmm
there's some that definitely stand out, and like I mentioned with B. Michael Stevens, like so many paper lanterns, leads off the anthology. And it's just it's an amazing story, and the blurb for it is very simple, but it tells the whole thing. It's when you sell your soul, you discover that surviving a war can be worse than not, and that really tells the story of his entry into this collection. You've got this guy who is trying to do the right thing and is trying to prevent catastrophe and only winds up making things worse. And it was a nice theme, and the way he tells the story and then reveals everything. Um, it just, if you're out there and you haven't read his work yet, you got to read his stuff because
hmm
the way he tells the story is just amazing. One of my favorite lines, I'll do that. I've got a favorite line, comes from the Pluto Chronicles by Bukhara Brumley. And it's literally the way the thing starts off is the chicken has to die. And I love that line. And yes, there are chickens on Pluto in this collection. And I'll tease you guys with that one.
Outstanding. So let's just kind of what I like to do with these anthologies, just kind of. Unfortunately I haven't. Usually I'm able to have it released first, but I decided to do one, pumping it up. Why don't you go over the stories, the titles for the stories with us, and then maybe say a few words about them.
There you go. Well, we've already talked about Ben's first story.
hmm
The next story is Time Out for Pluto by P.A. Piot, and I hope I pronounced his last name right. And he actually takes a look at the god Pluto as a teenager, and the other gods have to deal with your typical teenager who sometimes gets out of line and is a little hard to get back into line. So That's the premise of his story. The third story is called A Brush, and that's by J.D. Arwais, who is a first-time author. It is set on Pluto, and it's a young girl who is painting in her room when a machine invasion strikes, and she kind of finds out she has a power within her that she didn't know before. And then the fourth one is the Pluto Chronicles, which is by Bukhara, which we've mentioned. And this is a settlement on Pluto that is under threat by a giant chicken who has already claimed several victims. And we pick up the story as they make their last stand. After that, we have another one that's kind of one of my favorites is Bat Out of Helheim by Corey McCleary. And we have Vikings in space, and they are actually going after Pluto in a epic Viking style space battle. So I think you guys will enjoy reading that one as well. This is going to take a while with 21 of them. The next one is The Rainbow Colored Rockhopper by J. Manfred Weichel. And this is a story about a hunter who is after the most elusive prey, which is a rainbow-colored rockhopper. And we will find out that there are many different colored rockhoppers out there, but to find the rainbow one and to bring it back, it will bring you a small fortune if you can pull it off.
Of course.
After that, The Heart of Pluto by Christine Chase. And this is who is stranded at the edge of the solar system and becomes, not by design, the first man to step on Pluto. Not sure he's going to make it off, but he finds allies in a unlikely place. Next story would be The Case for Pluto, which is by A.M. Freeman, and you will see her name in a lot of the anthologies. I think she may be in every one of them, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, she certainly tried.
I think she tried. I think she's either in all of them or will be. But in The Case for Pluto, there is a trial underway. And this one I like because it will determine if the people of Pluto are free to be their own planet or if they become subjects of Neptune. So it's an interesting courtroom story. And as I have said many times before, Pluto is a planet. And if you disagree, you're wrong. So we'll just leave it at that. Next is Marathon to Mordor, which is by Karina Fabian. And this one is kind of a American Gladiator in space with a most interesting end to the race. I think everybody will like the way she wraps up the race on this one. It's a very interesting story. Followed by Miss Nancy's Garden by Jim Riles. And this one, it was an interesting story because it's more of a character-driven story than it is anything else. But it really kind of it hooks you with the way the characters interact. I'll leave it at that. But it's a very interesting story. Then we have On Eternal Patrol by L.A. Beam II, and that's another one I'm hoping I'm pronouncing right. This one actually deals with a submarine story, but it's got an interesting premise where it's the dead military from pretty much all of history are brought back to fight alongside the god Pluto. So it's a little different military type story, but it was very interesting premise, so we got it in there. That's followed by Pluto Invictus by W.J. Hayes. And this one, it ties in, I think, with another story that he's been writing. And also it ties in with one that's in Venus, I believe, as well. And this is just his main character has been hired to make sure artifacts are delivered to Pluto. And there's some adventure trying to get that done. Followed by Worst Contact by Arlen Andrews Sr. This one is kind of an alien contact landing on Earth story, but it fits in with what we were doing with the collection itself. So it's an interesting first contact story. After that, we have Ambit of Sharon, which is by David Skinner. And this one's actually set on Pluto and its moon. So it kind of gets in there. There's a clerk from a base on Pluto that has to go find these missing scientists on the moon, and it gets a little interesting for him in that search. We're followed by Sunset over Gunther by Frank Luke, and this is the son of a miner lord. Not miner isn't digging, but just one of your smaller lords.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never sure how to sort that out. Anyway, so the son has to lead troops over some invaders. And he figures that the best way to do that is to go make a deal with the gods. And, sometimes that doesn't always work out the way you want. The next story is Adaptive Reasoning by John M. Olson. And this was an interesting story. At first, I wasn't quite sure about it, but as I read it and got to the end of it, it's like, okay, this is a good one. This is a synthetic creature that is designed to help win a war against the human race. And the alien race that has created him has kind of created a Frankenstein monster. And I think that's probably where we should leave that. But it's a fascinating story on an interesting take on the Frankenstein story. So it definitely got in there. Judgment of Anak is next this is a pen name, obviously, by Andy Pluto. We decided we would let the author get away with that one. But with Judgment of Anak, we have a merchant who encounters a swindler, and he is worried that he will not please the god Anak with the way he's lived his life. So the swindler comes up with a way that he could save the guy for a price, and the guy pays the price and finds out you can't always buy your way out of trouble. So we'll go on that one. This is followed by Life at the End by Jake Freewald. This is the main character has built a greenhouse on Pluto and wants to live his life by himself, and gets a visit from his daughter. And so we kind of find out how he deals with this intruder, and it has a very interesting ending. And I'll leave that hook there. It's kind of it was an interesting surprise at the end when I first read it. Okay. Oh, hey, we're coming up to the last three. A Clockwork Dragon is next by Alan Goodner. And this is kind of a steampunk retelling of St. George and the Dragon. I think it's the best way to do that one. This one has some interesting, if you're into knights and dragons, I think you'll like this story. The next to last story is called The Collector by Declan Finn. And this one is a thief who's been hired by a wealthy, I think, gazillionaire who lives on Pluto, who likes to acquire rare works of art and hide them out so that nobody can see them but him. The collector's been hired to steal a very rare item, and it turns out he's got other motives for taking the job, and it's not going to end up quite the way the gazillionaire is thinking. And then our final story is written by me, and it's called Yes, Neil D. Tyson, Pluto is a Planet. And this is a family that visits Disneyland in the 1950s. And we find them after they have visited, and they're on their way home. And the trip home is going to be even more out of this world than their day at the park was. And I'll leave that there. And that's the last story.
Wow. Whew. Whew. I'm getting the sweats just listening to it.
I need to take a nap. We packed a lot into this one.
Mm-hmm. No, and it's appreciative. Nothing like the way I view it is if you're gonna have quantity, you want quality, but quantity is thing all its own. If you're gonna have like only like four or five, things in your anthology, they better be like Nick Cole. You know what I mean? They better be,
Yeah.
like there better be at least one Kevin J. Anderson in there, or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I think we had, I want to say somewhere between 30 and 40 submissions that made the initial cut as far as, we got some that were like, no, don't even, no, no, just, but it got down to about 40, and then we had to cut it in half.
Hmm.
And I told everybody when I sent out the rejection emails, just because it's a no does not mean that that wasn't a great story. It just, we couldn't get it in, and the ones that did make it were just that much, just a little bit better. So
Hmm.
it was a tough call. I that was the part of this that I really hated, was having to go through and make that call and say no, this one, just couldn't quite do it. I mean, if we could have done a Pluto 2, we had 20 stories ready to go.
Hmm.
But, unfortunately, we could only do one, so we had to cut it to
Oh.
21. But no, I think people, there's something in there for everybody, and I think everybody's going to enjoy reading them.
It did sound like that. I know Ben Michael Stevens. I know Corey McCleary. Both of them, take great amount of pride in their work. I've heard some of the other names, Bokurab Brumley and all the other ones.
Yeah,
With that, and it does sound like a quality product that I'm looking forward to purchasing and sticking next on my bookshelf with the rest of them, with the antique covers. Just ooh, and I'll get the new covers too, and ooh,
there
it
you
might
go.
need its own shelf. Uh, but what a problem! I actually for my Black Friday I bought like 20 books. Uh,
Hmm.
because it's like that's what I do for my shopping. Like I get clothes from the thrift store. I eat Taco Bell or cook it myself. But then there's books. There's
Hmm.
quality books, and that I have always money for quality books. Uh, and the Pluto anthology will certainly not break anyone's bank. Uh, and it's always good to support the anthology cause, even though it doesn't seem to be, I guess I'll say, in vogue right now. Hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of, I've heard both ways. People, they like having the anthologies where you've got multiple short stories, and then there's those that say no, I want just a one story book.
Hmm.
I've been doing some Sherlock Holmes short stories that have been showing up in anthology collections, and those are going off the shelves.
Really?
So I think but there's this big, you know, fan base of Sherlock Holmes that people are wanting the newer stories as long as they're well written. And there's a
Hmm.
couple of publishing outfits out there that are just cranking out some great Sherlock Holmes material. And so they put out a Kickstarter for one. Well, for example, we just ended one that I'm going to be in, that funded at 538%.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's pretty.
I think it was the first 2 days they had their funding.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, so I mean, as long as you have good material out there, people are gonna come, they're gonna buy it, they're gonna want more, and that's what I'm hoping we're gonna be able to do by continuing the planetary series, is get these next, well, Pluto and then the next five
Hmm.
of the original, the new ones, and get them out. And I'm thinking that once we get closer to having most of them out, I think a lot of people are going to finally say, okay, you're going to finish the series out, so we'll go ahead and start buying them. And once they do, they're going to get hooked. Because I know the first five that came out were great.
Yeah.
And I
Oh.
was only in two of them, so I'm not bragging. But all five of them were really great. So
Oh yeah.
I'm hoping that once we finish them out, it's going to be a great 11 book series.
I know. For the three that I'm in the first five, Mercury, Mars, and Earth. Mercury, Schubert to Rachmaninoff, everyone loves, and I have the honor of being placed in quite close proximity, sweaty proximity even, to John C. Wright's big opener. Then
Hmm?
I have in Mars, I have Coughing Fit, which is about a super soldier with a lung rot disease going after the Yakuza, and all the shocks and twists and turns that has. And on Earth, it actually has one of my first short stories that was worth reading, uh, which is about a guy who's turned himself into a robot to flee from a nanotech monster he created. Um, so it's like you have, even among similar authors, you see across these anthologies, we're not doing the same thing over and over again. I know in
Hmm?
Uranus, I've got weather witches dueling over the throne, and in Neptune, if I'm accepted, though he's a bit of a mystery right now. I've got a submarine captain discovering some ancient monster at the bottom of the Neptunian Sea, which I think will be a crowd pleaser, but I'm not biased. So when this is kind of an advertisement within it, but if you're looking at it and you're thinking, no, I'm gonna wait, hey, that's fine, man. But just know that if you're like, oh, I see Ben Wheeler in there like 6 times, and he's the sole anthology editor, I guarantee you, each one's completely different. Each one's its own thing. April's doing the thing where it's the same universe, but even then, each story is different and enjoyable in its own way. Uh, just like I assume
I'm
you are.
I'm I'm kind of the same way. I'm going to be depending on the final decisions from the editor of Neptune and the guy who's doing Soul,
It's
whoever
cool.
that might be. If I get my stories into those two, and I haven't heard, and I hope I've made it clear to the last three books. Just because I'm on the publishing side of this doesn't mean you have to put my story in. But having said that, if I get in, I would be in 7 of the 11. And it's strange because you mentioned that some people have everything within the same universe. 6 of my stories have the same theme,
Hmm.
but they're completely different stories. Whereas the Pluto one was more me taking a kind of tongue in cheek poke at the people who don't think Pluto is a planet. So, I
Right.
mean, that's the whole point of that story is, yeah, it's a planet.
Yep.
I wanted the official, yes, it's a planet. I don't care what you say. It's a planet. Deal with it.
Yep.
So that's kind of the point of that one. But the rest of them kind of have a similar overall theme. And I'm looking at not knowing the last three. So the first 8,
Hmm.
the 5 that were originally released, the 3 that we've got close to either releasing with Pluto, and then Luna and Uranus are up next, and they should be out in the next couple of months. I think, let me see, we have right now 74 different authors, total of 141 stories in those 8 anthologies right now.
Mm. So almost everyone's going in for seconds.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. We have we mentioned A.M. Freeman. Let me see. I've got her right now in 2, 4, 6, 8, all 8. So it'll depend on the last 3 if she makes the 11 for 11. Bocara is the same way. She's got all 8. I think they're the leaders in the clubhouse, and I've got 6 or 5s and 4s. But we've got a lot of singles. We've got J.D.R. Ways, who I mentioned, who's in Pluto. We got Kevin J. Anderson, who's in Mars. That was his only one and only.
yeah.
And he has graciously agreed to remain in the re-release, so we're good to go there. I was sweating that one. I didn't want to lose Kevin. Um,
Absolutely not.
so he's definitely back in. Lou Antonelli's in for a few. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's got 6. So the Italians are battling it out for third place right now.
Yeah. Well, I've seen Lou Antonelli. He's pretty prolific when it comes to short stories, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
Hmm.
Yep.
I've
So
noticed him in. I think we do have a collection of his short stories. What is it called?
I'm drawing a blank too, and I know what you're talking about.
It's like something something bar. There's In the Shadow of the Cross, which is kind of a novella, and then there's unless it got taken down because we had to reorganize our store. And there's just a lot of like 99-cent things. Eh. Anyway, but no, In the Shadow of the. Wait, I just said it. Uh, I'm annoyed because I know I can just look over. Hold on a second. There's In the Shadow of the Cross and Lou Antonelli's like bar or something. Hmm.
I just
I'll
saw
be
the
right
cover
back.
yesterday.
Right. I'm gonna be
Yeah,
right back, guys.
okay. I'm going to look and see because I know I just saw that cover not 24 hours ago, and I'm not that old that I forget things that quickly, I hope. Let me see here. His interview. That's not what we're looking for.
No, it's Lou's Seven Deadly Tales, and he did
There
a
you
thing on
go.
the seven deadly sins. Well, I still have some of the books we didn't sell at Dragon Con last September, so I've got them. I got like one of his left. Actually, it's thinking about collections of short stories. One of the more underappreciated short story anthologies is Tales of the Once and Future King that Anthony Marchetta put through.
Hmm?
Like so far, he's done, well, doing and done. Past and present. Will do, I guess too. He's done God Robot, which was produced by Castalia House, which was absolutely top tier, 10 out of 10. You got John C. Wright, you got Fox Day, you got uh, you know, just a whole smorgasbord of top tier authors in our circles. Then we had Tales of the Once and Future King, which sadly I didn't get into, though I did try. But he wrote a novella ish around it so that the short stories are tales being told, and it has Jaji Lamplighter writing in, and I think it has John C. writing in it too. I don't know. I don't feel like getting up again to look at it. And then he's doing the Saturn one as well, which I actually
Hmm.
have forgotten that he's said I'm going to have a short story in that, and that's going to be about Paradox Jones, a man who is played by causality and routinely beaten by cops for trying to explain it. Uh, the time police do not appreciate being explained time travel causality.
Well, the authorities just don't like the truth, you know?
It's
They
like,
just they universally hate the truth. You know what can we
right,
say?
right, right.
Well, yeah, yeah. Speaking of Saturn, because Saturn, in a perfect world, we would have loved to released everything in order from the sun out.
Mm-hmm.
But the situation as it was, we weren't going to be able to do that. But Saturn is slated to be the final book release of the 11-book series, and the reason for that, because people are like, well, why don't you release it after you do Jupiter? Is Saturn is about endings. It's one of its themes, and what a
Mm-hmm.
better way to end the series than with Saturn and it being about endings. So we decided we wanted to make that one our closing book.
I love it.
So Anthony has some extra time to get that one ready.
Oh, good. And I have less time to get Saul ready, huh?
Yes, you
See
do,
who's
because
fighting out
yeah.
under the
So
collar.
we would like to put Saul out just shortly after Jupiter comes out. So yeah,
Okay. Yeah,
once
no
you see
problem.
Mars comes out, you better have Saul in here.
Oh, don't worry.
Yeah,
I may look lazy on the outside, but I am also lazy on the inside. But great at that, last minute preparation.
I,
Though,
I have discovered it's funny. My newspaper career I ended as an editor for the last, I think, 5-10 years.
hmm
And editor I've forgotten who editor Richard was, and he's not a very nice guy when stuff is not coming in when it's supposed to. I've rediscovered that in getting Pluto going, because I had a couple of people who were kind of lagging on getting some stuff in, and I'm like, okay, I've asked you twice, And here comes editor Richard, and he's not asking.
I'm not asking.
so
Oh,
so I'll just say that now. I will, I'll ask a couple of times. Let me know if you need some help. If you need more time, okay. But if I'm
yeah.
asking and I'm not getting answers, editor Richard gets really mean.
Oh no. Well, my kneecaps are already under a lot of stress. I can't. Actually, what I have been up to is I've been formatting tons of books for Superversive Press,
Yeah,
and I've actually enjoyed it quite a bit. And I might just start doing that as a side project. Uh, you to our listeners out there who like the Superversive brand, you'll be seeing a lot of John C. Wright and a few new authors, including Edward Hoarfrost or whatever his name is. Uh,
interesting name.
yes. Uh, uh, anyway,
I think John C. Wright's got a new series that he's working on, and I think Superversive Press is going to publish it.
so there's a couple of things going on with him right now. He Castelli House hasn't quite like closed its doors, but
Hmm?
it's not really focusing on the publishing game. It's more focused on the
Yeah,
comics publishing, which have been met with critical acclaim. No one's complaining about John C. Wright landing in our laps, but they have different ways of doing things, and ways that I have been unable to replicate in a easy or efficient fashion. Uh, but I'm the kind of guy who doesn't mind brute forcing things, so they're going to look great when they're republished. But we're just going to
but
have to.
he's
Hmm?
I think he was on my podcast. I want to say 3 months ago or so, and I think he was coming up with a new sci-fi series that
Star
I
Quest?
thought Superversive. Yeah, there you go. I
Yes.
didn't I didn't want to speak out of turn, so I was kind of I was going to
Oh
throw it out there, and if you reacted, okay. If not, then I was just going to shut my mouth and move on.
no,
Yeah,
no,
the
no, no.
StarQuest.
Yeah. Sorry.
I'm actually working part of that because he sent me what we call the StarQuest Bible, and yeah, it's Bible sized,
Mm-hmm.
the notes and everything to work with, and so he has graciously allowed me to see if I could play in his sandbox on that series. So I'm looking forward to getting back to working on that.
Oh yeah. A bit of the backstory for those who, well, we only really have fans here, but StarQuest was a sort of reward for a Indiegogo campaign a couple years ago, sometime around Dragon Con last year, I want to say. I
Mhm.
got the $80 for signed novels, and he's on track for release. And I know that the second, like, no offense to you, sir, but the second we get those manuscripts, I'm formatting that baby.
Mhm.
There could be family, like it could be like car crashing through the front, gunmen pouring out, and it's like I'm still one-handedly doing it with defending myself with the other hand. Um, I've been looking forward to this book quite some time. Uh and it's just a better Star Wars with more of
Yeah,
a focus on the Jedi Knights. Like, people wonder, how do you describe Galaxy's Edge? Well, it's Star Wars except from the perspective of the stormtroopers. Well, what's going to be StarQuest? Well, it's Star Wars from from the perspective of the Jedi Knights and the the dashing smugglers and stuff like that.
well, what's interesting is John's notes go. He sets 12 ages, and
Mm.
I'm actually getting to the fourth age. So I found a little little hole in the wall in the fourth age I want to play in. So I'm working on that, and there's another author who's going to work in the, I believe, the seventh. And he and I have been exchanging notes because we're going to tie some stuff that we're both doing together, so
Mm-hmm.
that something that shows up in mine in the fourth is going to be referenced in the seventh, and it'll kind of tie it together and hopefully help produce that connection that John's looking for throughout the ages, to where it's really an epic story that's going to start at this point and go out over thousands and thousands of years, and it'll have that continuity to it that I think the readers are really going to appreciate once
Mm-hmm.
enough of them get out and they start realizing it's like, hey, how did you know he was going to do this when it happens afterwards. It's like, oh, well, we're planning it this way. We're trying to make sure we do those kind of things. And I
Hmm.
think that's just going to make that much better. But having read the notes that John sent over, and I say notes, it's like 40 some odd pages of stuff that he sent over. It's really in depth, and I think is people are really going to like it, especially those who have been a little disappointed with the way Star Wars has panned out lately.
People have been disappointed by Star Wars. No,
Oh,
it's people are like, should I go see episode 9? And of course my argument is no, you don't give money to people who hate you. But
yeah,
people are like, but the Mandalorian is so good. And I think like isn't John Favreau is on the Mandalorian?
I believe so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like he's one of the only people in Hollywood who probably genuinely knows what people want and this is the important thing is willing to give it to them.
Right. Well, for me, Rogue One is the last Star Wars movie that was worth watching.
It like so you're right, but the scene where they scraped the top off a Star Destroyer with another Star Destroyer, why it was brain meltingly epic made me mad and I'm still don't know why.
Okay.
Like I don't know why, but it did something to me. And it's just like stuck in my craw. But you know what? That's okay. Uh, it's probably just I don't know. I don't know. You're right. Like Solo made me mad throughout the entire movie, and I still
Yeah.
haven't seen the Last Jedi, which is probably a good thing. They'll probably find me on the top of the Gateway Arch with like dual machine guns, screaming and like crapping myself or something. Just going completely insane.
Yeah,
Um,
my huge complaint was by the end of The Force Awakens, and this is what killed it for me. And I barely watched Rogue One, but I got talked into going. Was by the end of the movie, we have zero spoken lines by Luke Skywalker.
mhm.
We have maybe what 30 seconds of screen time for Luke Skywalker, and at no point do we have a scene where we have Luke, Leia, and Han together again.
Mhm.
We didn't get that scene, and we should have gotten that scene.
Yeah.
The end of the
It's
movie, you realize it's never going to happen now because they've killed off Han, and oh, by the way, Carrie Fisher went and died, so that's not I don't know. I walked out of that movie thinking I'm done with Star
mhm.
Wars.
But it
But
doesn't.
then again, I'm the charter member of the I Hate J.J. Abrams Club, so that's part of it too.
Oh yeah, it's one of those things. Like my hatred for him isn't there as great as some people's, but I did enjoy Super 8, which I hold as being the only J.J. Abrams movie worth any sort of notice. But even then, that's just a riff off of Spielberg. So it's not as impressive as some people might think. But it's honestly both you and I, we have an absolute dedication to quality, which is why people can trust the planetary anthology Pluto volume.
There you go. There you go.
You see that how I brought it full I do this like one
I
time.
like that.
Yeah.
That was well done, sir. I enjoyed that one. That was well, yeah. It is definitely 21 quality stories, and you're definitely getting your money's worth when you get that one, especially with 21. Yeah, I think Luna is going to have 22 or 23, but that's because we decided to forego the Luna and Dark Luna volumes and just make it into one.
Really.
Um, yeah, it was more. It's kind of a production issue on our end at Tuscany Bay because both Jim Christina and I, who are the I don't know if I should say brains or the lunatics
Mhm.
behind Tuscany Bay Books right now. Uh, we've got a lot of other stuff that we're also trying to do at the same time, and taking on Planetary was such a sudden and last minute thing that we're having to rearrange some things and reschedule some things, and we weren't tied down to it had to be around 100,000 words for for each book. So we decided we would bite the bullet and make a slightly larger Luna, and save ourselves that much time, because it people don't realize it. It takes a while to get through each one of these, from once the editor makes the call and says,
Mhm.
"Here's the stories," to release date. And I guess one of these days I should do it on my podcast, is walk everybody through everything that has gone on with Pluto. And I had Pluto ready to go for months.
Yeah, and it's
A lot of
it's
stuff.
well, and I'm always up, to be hired for like formatting or just grunt work if you want. But the whole like formatting thing that I've been doing for Mr. Right, like Jason, I've only recently started helping Jason. He was like sitting on these planetary guys with like a plunger, and anytime there was, time to deliver, everyone's, pennies from their, cut of the take, it's like, okay, Excel sheet, and Excel sheet like reaches for the revolver, it's like, no, no, Excel sheet, not yet, and it's like, PayPal goes out, and it
Yeah.
was such a production that it was draining all of our resources. And I know exactly what you're talking about. Um, I know that I can usually get a full like John C. Wright, which is a very clean manuscript. I can get a full John C. Wright novel done in about a day. If it's like a trilogy, so they're all kind of the same, so you don't have to do anything special for them, I can do like the
Mhm.
full trilogy in a day. But then it's like I had this one thing, Echoes of Gold, which is looking to be a pretty good fantasy novel. The appendices, like he had actually drawn out all of the letters of their alphabet and just like doing a little fiddly here, all right, and then it's like, all right, you're at the center of the page. Thank you for being in the center of a page. But why do I need X amount of spaces so that the description of it doesn't like warp in of itself in a eldritch fashion? And it's like, please, just work for me, Vellum, please.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a long drawn out process to work one of these through. And when you're dealing with, I think the smallest amount of authors for one anthology is going to be like 12 or 13. So you got 13 different people, and you're sending edits back,
Hmm.
and it takes a lot of time and a lot of man hours. And we've already, like I said, we've already got other things that were scheduled, so we're working around that. So it just got to, just looking at it and saying, okay, we can bite the bullet, let Luna be a little bit bigger, let it be it's probably going to be the whitest one, and when you get them all lined up on your shelf. But
Yeah.
we can live with that, and use that extra time not having a 12th book to deal with, to get everything else done. Because yeah, I'm looking at my whiteboard, which now has all the anthology series listed as far as where they're at. And then over on the other side is my writing projects, which went on hold when we took over, until we get caught up with some stuff. So yeah, a very busy plate, very full plate.
And of course, I'm putting up the planetary anthology Luna thing. It should pop up any time now. There we go.
Mhm.
And it's a pretty nice cover. I'm looking forward to it. I'll probably try and nab Declan Finn whenever you guys are ready to publish it. Did I get in on the new edition?
Let me, you know what? Speaking of spreadsheets,
Right,
let me call up my author tracker
right.
and scroll down, and I'm looking for Ben Wheeler, and
All
for Luna, I am not seeing your name.
right, that's fine. Uh,
That, hey, let me make sure. Let me make sure that's not a oversight on my spreadsheet, which hates my guts sometimes.
yeah.
We can double check that, but
No,
yeah,
back when it was two. I think I was on the dark side of the moon. Hmm, I don't
I
know.
was I was I was originally going to be in Dark Side of the Moon. So let me see. No, that's not the thing I was looking for. I don't think. I think right now the answer is no. I don't think you made it.
That's all right. That's fair. Though, like just so you know, a little bit of history. I sent in two. One was the guy going crazy in the crack of the moon, and then getting what could have been a cyborg, but
Mhm.
pretending to be a person, and it drove him mad. And then I also submitted Great Black Cat of the Witching Hour. Um, and it was actually surprised me that he originally accepted the guy going crazy in the dark side of the moon over Great Black Cat of the Witching Hour, which everyone agrees is the superior story. And I actually had it audiobooked by Ken Dickinson, who is an excellent audiobook voice actor, if a bit new, I guess we'll say. He did a Goddess Gambit as well, that audiobook. And for a Halloween treat for everyone, and as kind of a we had a chain of favors, but it's no, it's like, huh, that's all right. I'm still fine with how everything turned out, and honestly, I didn't exactly write that story from a good place. So maybe if it's nice and forgotten, and you know,
Well, I just called up the manuscript we're going to be working with once we got all the short stories together, and I do not see your story in there. So
it's
I
okay.
am a bearer of bad tidings.
It's okay. I'll only eat a lot of Taco Bell to get over it. So
Well, I'm right there with you. I got a rejection letter last week on an anthology I really wanted to be a part of. It was a nice rejection letter though. They liked the story. It got past their first cut, made it to the second round, and just didn't make it to the final round. It's like
yeah,
so close, but I'll just find another home for it somewhere. That's all. That's what you
yeah.
got to do.
And it's part of the thing. Like it's like I tell people, it's like rejection's nothing. You talk to a cute girl or whatever, and she says nah, and it's like, okay. Like some people, they get ruined over it. They get ruined over their rejection letters, their rejections in real life, where they get fired because there's layoffs. And it's like, you did you did you set your entire life on this? Like it's like I had one girl, like, we broke up after a couple months, and I'm like, okay, see ya, and I went out, drinking, and she like looked at me funny just because it's like, no, the whole, like, nice thing was just what you're supposed to do when you're boyfriend girlfriend. I'm perfectly, emotionally independent. So it's like, just don't worry about it. Like, to any authors who are listening out here, who want to send something out. Like,
Let
if you
me let,
hmm?
go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, like, if you get me, it's like, and I don't like it, I'll like give you reasons why I don't like it. Like, I gave this guy who wrote a book called Chalk. Like, I need to finish it all the way just to make sure it finishes good. I do the slush reading as well. So, um, I said, okay, well, you got to like a third of the way through. This is what I don't like it. Fix it, and we'll see what happens. And he's so far fixed every problem I've had with it. And so as long as he doesn't like trip and face plant and break a leg 3 feet from the finish line, it's going. I'm gonna throw it to Jason to see if we want it.
Well, that's the thing, and I tell this story to new authors when it comes to rejection letters. My very first rejection letter was about 37-ish years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and it was I had submitted a sci-fi ish short story to a magazine back at the time that published those stories. First time I'd ever written a story, first time I'd ever submitted, I get the rejection letter, and basically, and this is a direct quote. The I should be ashamed for my offense against the English language, and I should turn my attention to a career in food service industry rather than write anything ever again. Okay, now you get one of those.
Right.
All right, and if you're fragile, you're done.
Yep.
But you don't. Yeah, it sucks, and yeah, I was not happy to get that, and yeah, I was a little displeased and disappointed. But what I did with that letter is I put it up on a corkboard above my desk where I wrote, and this is back in the days of the typewriters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's how old I am. So above my typewriter every day, As I sat down to that thing, that's the first thing I looked at was that letter. And I used that as motivation to get better and to get published, if for no other reason than to just look at that, look at that guy one day and, tell him you were dead wrong. I left that up for a couple of years, and I started getting the yes letters. Things started flowing, and I finally took the letter down. I don't even know if I still have the thing. I would imagine I probably chucked it. But I tell the new authors is to use that rejection as a motivation to get better. Try to find something in that letter that will tell you where you came up a little short, um, and focus on that and do it a little bit better the next time and keep doing it. You're not going to get a yes. Very rarely you get a yes every time, and very, very rarely do you get a yes on the first go. If you do, hey, well done, good job. If you never get a rejection letter, tell me how much you sold your soul to the devil for, because everybody gets them. So just don't let them stop you from writing. That's the key, is just keep writing, and eventually it's going to work.
Oh yeah, and it's like a lot of it is also just like selling yourself on that stuff. Did you get a rejection letter because your book was bad, or did you just have a bad, selling, what's it called? A bad description, we'll say. Any
Yeah.
number of things could be the problem. I know for myself, I've been relatively lucky. But I also spent like 10 years practicing my writing and studying how to write and so on and so forth
Mhm.
before I ever sent anything out. Like writing fan fictions and dumb stuff like that. Uh, that thankfully will never see the light of day.
Yeah, I have a story called the Merizium Factor that is floating around here somewhere. That I think I have a incendiary package attached to. If anybody ever tries to open that envelope, it will burn.
Right?
It will instantly ignite. The idea was solid. The execution was not so solid, and so it will remain unread.
Hmm. That's how cyber gothic is going right now, which is one of my work in progresses. It's like, ugh, ugh. And I was
Yeah,
writing it like 2 years ago too. Ah.
yeah, yeah. So just keep writing. That's all you can do. Like I said, speaking of keep writing, I need to get back. I've got the Timeless series that
Mm-hmm.
we were supposed to release book 3 over the Thanksgiving holiday and book 4 over Christmas. Yeah, I don't know about either one of those. Something happened, and I will try to get the third Timeless book for those who have read the first two. I will make every effort to get it out before the end of the year, but I am not swearing to anything right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is as good a place to stop as any. Pluto's coming out on Thursday. I know I've got a little like tab open to it. So I'll probably get the physical edition because I'm a physical edition kind of guy. I like them,
Okay.
thick in my
Well,
hand.
both everything's coming out will be in ebook and in print. It will be Amazon only.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just because the Kindle Unlimited, and there's a lot of people who will only read that if they can do it through KU. So we made the decision to stay with Amazon only for now, but it's out there, or it will be on Thursday. I should say that.
Mm-hmm. And that's fantastic, professional. I love it. And I am looking forward to all the other ones, and I'm looking forward to working on Soul and editing my Uranus. Actually, I think I edited the Uranus thing already. I'm just procrastinating on sending it out. Ugh, I earned my
Well,
money gold today.
you're probably going to get a word from Chris, who's the editor on that. He'll probably go, dude, I need it.
Yeah, and
Because
that's
editor Richard will be talking with Chris, and
oh
Chris will
no.
be talking with you. That's how that works.
It's like that one chain of things where like the boss yells at the dad yells at the mom yells at the kid yells at the dog. It's like, oh, please, I'm just an author. Uh, well. Anyway, thank you for joining me, Richard. When you, I'll keep an ear out for Luna and try to get Declan Finn on that. We'll talk later. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.